Hi, I'm Joy. Last week I shared a video about how I figured out not getting penalized for unsafe following in the Tesla Safety Score, or TSS. Even though I have been driving around for the last 4 or 5 days without the unsafe following penalty, the initial 2 days of driving ever since Tesla released the scoring system, I still had a overall 60% of unsafe following thing, even though my overall score had been improving. So for reference, after the first 2 days of driving, when Tesla released this on September 25th, Saturday, for the 25th and the 26th, those 2 days, I accumulated an overall of 60% of unsafe following, and my overall driving score or safety score, TSS, was 94 out of 100. On Monday, I figured out how to not get penalized for that particular scoring area because that's the only one that was really hurting me badly. And even though I have been driving without that penalty any longer, that 60% was still showing up in the app. It was still kind of hanging around me like a dark cloud, despite that my overall score was going up. So my overall score improved from 94 to 95 to 96, but that 60% was still there. So I started thinking, how do I improve that red 60% of unsafe following score to at least a yellow overall? Since Tesla does not penalize you when you're on autopilot or when you're traveling below 50 miles per hour, that means that 60% of the unsafe following score that I accumulated, they happened when I was driving manually, as I explained last week in the video, during the on-ramp and merging into the traffic time frame, and that's when I realized I got dinged. So I thought that I probably need to actually manually drive my car over 50 miles per hour in order to balance that unsafe following score out. Like last week, I went out and did a test drive. I drove for 20 miles, and for most of the part, I would say maybe 15 miles of the trip, I drove it manually, even on the freeway. What I did was I had to pick a time during the day when there isn't a lot of traffic here in LA, because once there's rush hour traffic, I would not be able to go over 50 miles per hour, and that test wouldn't work. So I drove in the middle of the day from West Los Angeles area to Malibu. So I took the Interstate 10 freeway all the way to the end, and then got on the Pacific Coast Highway, Highway 1, all the way up to Malibu. Thankfully, the time that I picked, the traffic wasn't as bad, and while I was on the freeway and on what we call PCH, Pacific Highway 1, I was able to keep a far distance. There's still a car in front of me, but a far enough distance for me to drive manually over 50 miles per hour that my score actually started balancing out, especially for the unsafe following penalty. So after that drive, I witnessed that my overall unsafe following jumped from, or I should say reduced, from 60% overall to 18% overall, and it moved from red to yellow. And for the last 3 days or so, I continued to drive my car manually when I am able to keep a good distance from the car in front of me whenever I can, and then use autopilot on the freeway for autopilot to take me from the on-ramp all the way to the off-ramp. And my test was successful because for the entire last week, I was able to balance out my unsafe following score again from 60%. Now I am down to just below 14% overall. And my overall score had improved from 94 from a week ago to 97. So this is another trick for you to get better score with TSS. And what I'm going to do now is that since now my unsafe following is in the yellow, I will continue to seek opportunities when there's less traffic and I can drive over 50 miles per hour without being too close to the car in front of me, and drive manually that way to continue averaging out that unsafe following score. And then for the rest of the trip, to use autopilot as much as possible. Yesterday, I decided to do a mini road trip, just a 1 day back and forth. I drove a total of 129 miles and I had 100 TSS, 129 miles. And I also hit traffic, and I was also driving on roads that were congested, and also side roads that were more empty, but there was still a car in front of me. And again, I kept my distance and we were traveling over 50 miles per hour. So everything started to average out, and I'm really thrilled to discover this technique. So if you are trying to improve your score, watch my video from last Tuesday on how not to get penalized for unsafe following. People have tried it out. They've been reporting back that ever since they tried my trick, they've been getting 100 score with the driving, and they totally got rid of that penalty. And from this point on, try to average that out. Or even if you have harsh turning or aggressive turning or forward collision warning, just continue to drive manually under 50 miles per hour when you can, and those will be counted for the miles driven, and that's going to average out all these initial penalties the first week that we're testing this out over the period of time. So I hope this video has been helpful, and I wish that you all are driving safely out there and that we all get high score so we can receive FSD beta soon and test it out. Thank you so very much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't. I will see you next time, and God bless.